portraits, landscape, street photography with just one lens, and not some expensive fancy lens, but the simplest one of all, a 50mm lens. When I first started out in photography with my film Pentax camera, that was the only lens I owned, and I used it for years before I was even in high school. Today, I want to show you why this little lens has so much power, why it's often called the nifty 50, and what happens when you limit yourself to one lens only. Here's the thing, in photography, it's easy, as we know and we've spoken about, to get caught up in gear. We think we need every lens in the lineup, but often, as we've spoken about, less is really more. When you only take one lens with you, a number of things happen. First of all, you travel lighter. You don't have a heavy bag with a lot of different lenses. There's no decisions. Which lens should I use? Should I take this one out and change this one? When should I switch lenses? These are a lot of distractions. It's just you and your camera if you take one lens. You also will get more creative because when you can't zoom in and out, you start moving your feet, you crouch, you step back, and you look harder for interesting frames. This limitation is actually freeing. It forces you to see more, to notice more, and to be more intentional with every shot so that your frames are more meaningful and more focused. Now, why does the 50mm prime lens, or why does that focal length work so well? First, it's one of the most affordable lenses out there. Almost every camera brand makes a 50mm 1.8 like this Sony that is sharp, light, and very budget friendly. I use the Sony system now, and I work with the 50mm 1.8 lens. I'm putting my affiliate link in the description. It is one of the least expensive quality lenses that one can purchase. Every manufacturer has their 50mm lens that is budget friendly. When I used the Panasonic Lumix system, I had the equivalent of a 50mm lens. When I used Nikon, I had their 50mm lens, and they were always good lenses. And they were versatile. They worked, and they could work in every situation. Of course, to be honest, one of the lenses on my bucket list is to buy a 50mm 1.2 lens. The field of view is close to what our eyes naturally see. It gives us a normal perspective, images that feel natural, authentic, and easy to connect with. And thirdly, this lens is versatile. Let me explain. First of all, let's talk about portrait photography. For portraits, the 50mm lens gives you a beautiful balance. You're close enough to your subject to feel connected, but not so close that you distort their features, like might happen with a 35mm or any wider lens. The wide aperture of f1.8, or if you even have a 1.4 or 1.2, you can certainly blur the background and really make your subject pop. It's intimate, but it's still flattering. Some of my favorite portraits were made with a 50mm lens because it feels natural to both the photographer and the person being photographed. What about the 50mm lens for street photography? Now, on the street, the 50mm lens is ideal on many levels because it's discreet, it's relatively small, it's not as large as a 24-70. It doesn't scream out, this is a professional photographer with heavy equipment trying to invade your space. It lets you blend in. You can stand close to the action without drawing too much attention, and yet it frames people in context. We can see the environment that our subject is in without going too wide. And because it's usually small and lightweight, you're moving around a lot faster. You can raise your camera, you can capture moments without fumbling around with heaviness, weight, and bulk. Now, what about the 50mm for landscape photography? Now, I think we all have in our head that 50mm isn't really for landscape. We want to go to 35, 24, 14, but that's the beauty of it. It forces you to see differently. Instead of capturing huge, wide, sweeping landscapes, which of course we'll get to, and they're beautiful, we will look for details, for shapes, for layers of depth. The 50mm can simplify our scene and make us really pay attention to light, lines, and composition. A wide lens can sometimes make us lazy because we're thinking we're getting everything in and we're not really framing what we want in there. The 50mm lens can really train our eyes to be precise. So what's the bigger lesson here? The real magic isn't just in the lens or the equipment, but in the limitation. By carrying one lens, we can give ourselves more focus, I guess, pun intended. You don't need the perfect piece of gear to make great images. We've talked about that. We need attention, intention, and practice. Now, a lot of the images that I'm showing you here came from recently where I was focused on showing you images of all different genres to illustrate my point. But I went into Lightroom, and as you can see, those of you that use Lightroom, you can filter at the top of your screen. You can go to text, attributes, metadata. So I chose all my photographs from the catalog on the left, and I put in the metadata 50mm lens. And then it didn't matter. The dates didn't matter. Nothing else mattered. I wanted all my images that I took with the 50mm lens. And I found so many and so much of a variety. So again, in its limitation, it sort of liberates us. It allows us to do almost any type of photography with a level of creativity that we might not have with zoom lenses or wide angle or telephoto. Now, I will be uploading videos about other prime lenses or other focal lengths. So if you don't have a prime lens, you can just put your zoom lens to that focal length, and your kit lens or any zoom lens. And you could set it, in this case, today's exercise, to 50mm or any other focal length that we'll be talking about. So we'll be talking about the advantages and disadvantages of each prime lens, 85, 35. But what I'd like you to do is I want you to learn. I want you to learn from these exercises. And I believe if you try to just shoot at a focal length of 50mm, you will learn a lot, you will grow, and you will get great images. And I think you'll even enjoy it. So my challenge to you to take your 50mm prime lens or your kit lens or zoom lens, set it to 50mm. Just go out at that setting, or just take your 50mm lens and shoot with that for a week, or even for one outing. Try some portraits, try some street photography, and try some landscapes. See what happens. You might be surprised at how much you learn and how freeing it feels. I, for example, when I go out, a lot of times I take a lot of lenses, and then I'm like, oh, I'm deciding which lens, and I'm bending down into my bag, taking out the 85, taking out a 28, 24 to 70, going back to my 50, going back to my 35. I'm sure I get a variety of images and I get a lot of what I want, but I think there's probably a lot of wasted time and energy. You might be surprised, and I know that I love it when I only have one lens and that's all I can shoot with. You will be surprised at your results. Now, when I go traveling, I take a lot of equipment with me because I can't come back to my studio and get this lens or that. I have to have everything with me. So I want you to try it, whether it's for an outing or a few outings or for a full week. And I'd love to hear from you. What's your favorite lens to limit yourself with? Or if you're just going to follow our series, try with the 50. Drop a comment below. Let me know how it went. Let me know your feelings. And then we'll move on to the next prime focal length. And again, I just want to thank everyone who has joined. If you haven't joined our channel or our community, please think about joining. We're growing the community, and I think we're all growing together. Our next live session will be posted in the post section of the channel in the very near future. And thank you to all of you who have reached out for one-on-one sessions where we've gone over a whole series and sets of your images in order to elevate your photography. All of the info is in the description below. Write me at photos@imagesthroughtime.com. And if you found this video helpful, please subscribe. I share new tips, challenges, ideas, and philosophy about photography on a regular basis, and I'd love to have you with me. Have a great day, and see you in the next video.